August 17, 1943, 27,000 feet above Regensburg, Germany. Staff Sergeant Tommy Ritchie hangs, suspended in a glass and metal sphere beneath AB-17 Flying Fortress, to 50 caliber machine guns between his knees. The ball turret, barely 4 feet in diameter, rotates independently from the bomber's fuselage. Through the curved plexiglass, Ritchie watches 3 Messerschmitt Bf-109s positioning for their attack run. 4 o'clock, low climbing fast. Ritchie rotates his turret, electric motors whining as he tries to track the lead fighter. His hands grip the control handles, thumbs hovering over the firing buttons. The fighters split. One breaks left toward the waist guns. To continue their climb, vectoring toward angles the ball turret can barely reach before they're already past, hammering the bomber's belly with 20 mm cannon fire. Ritchie fires. His tracers arc uselessly through empty sky. By the time he rotates to track the second fighter, it's already attacking from a new vector. He's always reacting, never anticipating, always one step behind pilots who know exactly how to exploit his limitations. This scene repeats across 146 B-17s attacking German ball-bearing factories today. The 8th Air Force will lose 36 bombers before nightfall, 360 American airmen dead or captured. The ball turret, designed to provide 360-degree lower hemisphere defense, achieves hit rates below 5%, the lowest of any gun position on the Flying Fortress. Post-mission analysis reveals a devastating pattern. German fighter pilots have systematically identified the ball turret's weaknesses. Solo ball gunners, isolated from the rest of the crew, rotating independently without coordination, create defensive gaps that Luftwaffe tactics exploit mercilessly. Attack vectors timed to catch ball turrets in rotation, blind spots engineered into every attack run, systematic destruction of America's most technically advanced gun position. At 8th Air Force Headquarters, senior officers debate solutions. More armor, bigger guns, powered turrets with faster rotation. Every proposal requires months of development and factory modifications impossible to implement on bombers already fighting over Europe. What these officers don't know is that at Kimballton Airfield, 60 miles north of London, 4 ball turret gunners are sketching diagrams on a maintenance hangar floor. For men who've watched too many friends die. For men who've discovered that the ball turret's greatest weakness isn't mechanical, it's tactical. For men about to violate every Army Air Force regulation on defensive coordination to create a system that will revolutionize bomber defense. This is the story of an innovation born from desperation, banned by command, and implemented anyway. The Sperry ball turret represents cutting-edge military technology in 1943. A remotely aimed electrically rotated sphere housing 2.50 caliber machine guns capable of tracking targets through 360 degrees of azimuth and 90 degrees of elevation. It's a marvel of engineering, cramming hydraulic systems, ammunition feeds, oxygen supply, and intercom connections into a space smaller than a telephone booth. Staff Sergeant Tommy Ritchie from Brooklyn, Staff Sergeant James Red Morrison from Oklahoma, Staff Sergeant Carl Wasserman from Wisconsin, and Staff Sergeant Marcus Washington from Alabama all arrive at Kimballton as replacement ball turret gunners in July 1943. They're all small men, the physical requirement for squeezing into the turret. Ritchie is 5 feet 5, Morrison 5'6", Wasserman 5'4", Washington 5'7". None weigh more than 145 pounds. The Army trains each of them identically. 6 weeks of gunnery school. Learn to clear jams, estimate range, lead moving targets. Practice on-ground ranges where targets move predictably along fixed paths. Graduate with Silver Gunner wings and assignment to B-17 crews. Nothing in their training prepares them for combat reality. August 12, 1943, Ritchie flies his first mission. Gelsenkirchen oil refineries. He spends 4 hours cramped in the ball turret, rotating constantly to track fighters that attack from unpredictable angles. He fires 680 rounds. He hits nothing. His bomber returns with 43 flak holes and damage from 2 fighter attacks his turret failed to defend against. Morrison's first mission, August 15th, Flensburg. He watches a Bf-109 dive past his turret's rotation speed, hammer the bomber's belly with cannon fire, and climb away before Morrison completes his tracking rotation. He burns through 520 rounds, chasing a fighter he never had a realistic chance of hitting. Wasserman, August 19th, Gills Region. His intercom fails 20 minutes into the mission. He spends the rest of the flight isolated in his glass sphere, unable to communicate with the crew, unable to coordinate with other gunners. Rotating blindly while fighters exploit the exact blind spots his isolation creates. Washington's first mission ends with his best friend, the ball turret gunner, on a neighboring B-17, killed when a Focke-Wulf 190 attacked from an angle that caught his turret mid-rotation, defenseless for the 3 seconds it took to traverse to a new firing position. 3 seconds? That's how long it takes to die in a ball turret. By late August, all 4 gunners recognize the same pattern. The ball turret's mechanical sophistication is irrelevant when tactical implementation is fatally flawed. They're fighting as individuals when they should be fighting as a unit. August 28, 1943, after a particularly brutal mission to Wotton, the 4 men find themselves in the same Nissen hut at Kimballton, comparing experiences, venting frustrations. "I'm always reacting," Ricci says, hands still shaking from adrenaline. Fighter comes in, I rotate to engage. By the time I'm on target, he's already adjusting his attack angle. "I'm chasing ghosts, and we can't talk to each other," Morrison adds. "I'm under the plane, waist gunners are on the sides, tail gunners in back. We all see different pieces of the same attacks, but there's no coordination. Fighters exploit that." Wasserman leans forward. "What if we could what? Coordinate. What if ball turrets didn't operate independently? What if we worked together?" Washington shakes his head. "We're on different aircraft, man. How are we supposed to coordinate across a formation?" "Not different aircraft," Wasserman says slowly, the idea forming as he speaks. "Different attack phases. Think about it. German fighters attack in waves, right? Frontal attacks first, then beam attacks, then tail attacks. Sequential phases. What if we rotated our defensive focus to match their attack phases? What if we created overlapping fields of fire timed to their tactics instead of reacting individually?" The room goes quiet. "That's not how we're trained," Morrison says. "Training's getting us killed," Ricci replies. "Keep talking, Carl." What follows is 3 hours of intense discussion. For ball turret gunners, none with formal tactical training, none with engineering backgrounds, sketching on scraps of paper, using maintenance tools to simulate firing angles, working through the mathematics of coordinated defensive fire. The concept that emerges is radical. Instead of each ball turret operating independently, rotating to engage whatever target appears in its field of view, what if ball turrets in a combat box formation coordinated their defensive zones based on predicted German attack patterns? The German fighter tactics are predictable. Luftwaffe pilots follow doctrine. Frontal attacks from 12 o'clock high diving through the formation. Beam attacks from 3 and 9 o'clock level, tail attacks from 6 o'clock low climbing, sequential phases exploiting the time it takes individual gunners to rotate and reacquire targets between attack runs. What if ball turrets stopped reacting and started anticipating? Ricci proposes sector assignments. Instead of every ball turret trying to cover 360 degrees independently, assign each turret a primary defensive sector based on formation, position. Lead aircraft ball turrets focus forward and below, covering frontal attack approaches. Wing aircraft, ball turrets, cover beam angles. Tail aircraft, ball turrets, cover rear approaches. Morrison adds timing, coordination between attack phases. Ball turrets pre-rotate to their next defensive sector before fighters arrive. Eliminate the vulnerable rotation time German pilots exploit. Stay ahead of the attack cycle instead of behind it. Wasserman contributes the critical piece, visual signals. Since intercom communication between aircraft is impossible, establish hand signals visible through ball, turret, plexiglass. Simple gestures that communicate attack directions, sector rotations, threat priorities. Turn ball turret gunners from isolated individuals into a coordinated defensive network. Washington, the most skeptical, finally asks the crucial question. This violates every tactical doctrine they taught us. You're talking about ignoring threats outside our assigned sectors, trusting other ball turrets to cover gaps. If this doesn't work, we're leaving our aircraft vulnerable. If it does work and command finds out we're running unauthorized tactics, we're court-martialed. You really want to risk that? Ricci looks at each of them. How many of us statistically survive 25 missions under current tactics? Silence. They all know the answer. Less than 30%. I'd rather die trying something new, Ricci says, than keep doing what definitely doesn't work. Morrison nods. I'm in Wasserman. Me too. Washington stares at the sketches for a long moment. Finally, all right, let's figure out how to make this work. What the four gunners design over the next week violates Army Air Force tactical doctrine in fundamental ways. Official ball turret employment calls for independent operation, with each gunner engaging targets of opportunity within his field of fire. The concept of pre-coordinated sector defense, anticipatory rotation, and intercraft hand signals appears nowhere in training manuals. But the four men aren't theorists. They're practitioners who've seen friends die. They don't care about doctrine. They care about survival. September 3rd through September 9th, 1943. Between missions, the four gunners meet secretly to refine their system. They need three components: sector assignments, rotation timing, and communication protocol. Sector assignments prove relatively straightforward. They obtain formation diagrams from group operations, standard combat box configurations showing aircraft positions for each position. They calculate optimal defensive sectors based on geometric fields of fire. Lead aircraft ball turrets. Primary sector 10 o'clock to 2 o'clock, minus 45 to minus 90 degrees elevation. This covers frontal diving attacks, the opening phase of most German fighter runs. High squadron wing aircraft. Primary sector 2 o'clock to 4 o'clock and 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock, 22 minus 60 degrees elevation, beam attack coverage. Low squadron and tail aircraft. Primary sector 4 o'clock to 8 o'clock, minus 10 to minus 45 degrees elevation, rear quarter and tail attack coverage. The sectors overlap intentionally. No gaps, but also no redundant coverage. Every ball turret focuses on the sector where it has optimal firing geometry while trusting adjacent turrets to cover their assigned zones. Rotation timing requires more sophistication. Morrison, who has a background in factory work, understands production timing and workflow. He applies the same principles to fighter attack cycles. German fighters attack in waves, Morrison explains. They don't all hit simultaneously. They coordinate, stagger their runs. First wave hits from front 15 to 20 seconds of engagement. Second wave hits from beam, another 20 seconds. Third wave from tail, same timing. Between waves, there's a gap, 30 to 45 seconds while they reposition. That's when we rotate, Wasserman realizes. During the gaps, we don't rotate during attacks, we rotate between attacks. They work out precise timing during engagement. Hold sector after last fighter of a wave passes immediate rotation to next sector. 10 seconds maximum rotation time. Lock in new sector 20 seconds before next wave arrives. The system requires anticipating attack phases before they develop, but that's exactly the point. Stop reacting, start anticipating. The communication protocol presents the biggest challenge. How do four gunners on different aircraft coordinate without radios? Washington solves it with surprising simplicity. We can see each other. Ball turrets are glass. If we position right in formation, I can see the ball turret on adjacent aircraft. We use hand signals. They develop a basic signal vocabulary. 5 signals, simple enough to recognize through plexiglass at 50 yards, clear enough to transmit critical information: closed fist, hold current sector open hand, fingers pointing direction. Rotate to indicated sector fist tapping head, threat from above, fist tapping chest, threat current sector palm, pushing away. All clear, prepare for rotation. The signals let ball turrets communicate threat information and coordinate rotation timing without intercom or radio. It's not sophisticated, but it doesn't need to be. It just needs to work. By September 10th, they have a complete system. Now they need to test it. September 13th, 1943, the 8th Air Force dispatches 300 B-17s against Paris industrial targets. The four gunners, assigned to different aircraft within the 379th Bombardment Group's combat box, will attempt their unauthorized coordination system for the first time in combat. Ricci flies in the lead aircraft, ball turret position giving him forward sector responsibility. Morrison flies right wing, covering starboard beam. Wasserman flies left wing, port beam coverage. Washington flies in the low squadron, rear sector responsibility. At briefing, they say nothing. Their pilots don't know. The group commander doesn't know. As far as official records show, 4 ball turret gunners are flying a standard mission using standard tactics. At 0843 hours, they cross the French coast at 26,000 feet. At 0921 hours, the Luftwaffe arrives. 12 Bf-109s position for frontal attacks, textbook doctrine. They're 4,000 yards ahead, setting up their diving runs. In the lead ball turret, Ritchie rotates to his assigned forward sector. 12 o'clock, low to high. He can see Morrison's ball turret on the right-wing aircraft, Wasserman's on the left. Through the plexiglass, Morrison catches Ritchie's eye, gives the closed fist signal. Hold sector. All 4 ball turrets lock into their pre-assigned positions. The Bf-109s begin their dive. Nose guns from the B-17s open fire first, then top turrets. Then, as the fighters drop into lower hemisphere angles, for ball turrets fire simultaneously. Not scattered individual shots, but coordinated, concentrated fire. For streams of 50 caliber tracers converging on approach vectors, creating a curtain of lead that fighters must penetrate. To Bf-109s break off immediately, unwilling to fly through the concentrated fire, the rest press their attacks, but they're disrupted, forced to adjust angles, losing the precision their tactics require. Ritchie tracks the lead fighter through his sector, fires a sustained burst. The 109's engine explodes. The fighter tumbles past the formation, trailing fire. The frontal attack wave passes. 15 seconds of engagement. Standard German tactics call for beam attacks next. Morrison gives the signal. Open hand, fingers pointing right. Rotate starboard. All 4 ball turrets rotate simultaneously. Ritchie swings from forward sector to starboard beam. Morrison adjusts from starboard to aft starboard. Wasserman and Washington reposition to port and rear coverage. The rotation takes 8 seconds. They lock into new sectors 18 seconds before the beam attack arrives. 6 FW-190s slash through the formation from 3 o'clock level. They expect individual ball turrets still rotating from frontal defense, vulnerable and out of position. Instead, they encounter 4 turrets already locked on their approach vector, firing the instant they enter range. Morrison's tracers tear through the lead 190's wing. The fighter rolls inverted and dives away. Wasserman catches another 190 with a deflection shot that shatters its canopy. The beam attack disintegrates, fighters scattering instead of pressing coordinated runs. The third attack wave, tail approaches from 6 o'clock, meets the same coordinated defense. Washington, pre-positioned in rear sector, engages immediately. Ritchie and Morrison, rotated to support rear quadrant coverage, add converging fire. The German fighters, accustomed to isolated tail defenses, encounter something they've never seen. Ball turrets operating as a unified system. The attack breaks off. The Luftwaffe fighters regroup at distance, clearly confused by defensive fire that anticipated their tactics instead of reacting to them. The B-17s continue to Paris, complete their bombing run, return to England without losing a single aircraft from the 379th Combat Box. For ball turret gunners land at Kimballton at 13:47 hours. Combined, they've achieved 3 confirmed kills and 4 probables. They've fired 1,840 rounds total. That's 613 rounds per kill, compared to the typical 3,200 rounds per kill for standard ball turret operations. More significantly, 0 aircraft from their formation sustained fighter damage. The coordinated ball turret defense forced German fighters to break off attacks or adjust approach angles, disrupting the precise timing their tactics required. As they climb from their turrets, the 4 men exchange glances. No words necessary. It worked. The celebration lasts exactly 30 minutes. At 14:20 hours, during routine debriefing, Major William Hendricks, 379th Bomb Group Operations Officer, reviews gun camera footage from the mission. He notices something unusual. Ball turret firing patterns that appear coordinated across multiple aircraft. Rotation timing that seems synchronized. Tracers converging from different bombers onto the same targets. Hendricks calls the 4 gunners to group operations at 1500 hours. Explain, he says, pointing at footage, playing on a projector, how 4 ball turret gunners on different aircraft achieved simultaneous sector rotation and coordinated fields of fire. Silence. Gentlemen, I asked a question. Ritchie speaks first. Sir, we developed a tactical coordination system. You developed. Hendricks' voice rises. You 4 sergeants developed unauthorized tactical modifications without command approval. Yes, sir. Do you have any comprehension of the regulations you violated? Tactical employment procedures are established by group operations, not individual gunners. You coordinated defensive sectors across multiple aircraft without authorization. You used hand signals, not in any communications protocol. You've fundamentally altered established defensive doctrine. Morrison steps forward. Sir, the established doctrine wasn't working. We achieved 3 confirmed kills today, using our system 0 aircraft lost from our formation. The numbers speak for themselves. The numbers. Hendricks slams a folder on the desk. The regulations speak louder than the numbers, Sergeant. I don't care if you shot down the entire Luftwaffe. You implemented unauthorized tactical modifications that could have compromised formation defense if they failed. What if your coordination broke down mid-attack? What if your sector assignments left gaps? What if fighters exploited your system? But they didn't, Wasserman says quietly. It worked. This time, Hendricks fires back. What about next time? What about other crews who don't know your system, who follow established doctrine while you forerun unauthorized tactics? You've created a coordination problem, not solved one. Washington speaks for the first time. With respect, sir, the coordination problem already existed. We just found a solution. The argument escalates. Other officers arrive. Captain David Morris, Group Armament Officer, demands immediate cessation of unauthorized tactics. Captain Robert Stiles, Assistant Operations Officer, argues the gun camera evidence suggests effectiveness worth investigating. The operations room devolves into heated debate. At 1640 hours, Colonel Morris Preston, commanding officer of the 379th Bombardment Group, enters operations. Preston is 46 years old, a West Point graduate, a career officer with 0 tolerance for breaches of military discipline. He watches the gun camera footage in silence for 10 minutes. Then he speaks. How many aircraft did this group lose last month? Major Hendricks flips through records. 14, sir. 14B. 17s. How many confirmed fighter kills did our ball turret gunners achieve during the same period? 6 confirmed, sir. Preston nods, slowly. 14 bombers lost, 6 fighters destroyed. That's our defensive effectiveness under current doctrine. He turns to the 4 gunners. You 4 achieved 3 confirmed kills in 1 mission. 0 friendly losses in your formation. Explain your system. For the next 45 minutes, Ritchie Morrison, Wasserman, and Washington explain their coordination concept in detail. Sector assignments, rotation timing, hand signal protocols, the tactical logic behind anticipatory defense versus reactive engagement. Preston listens without interrupting. When they finish, he turns to Major Hendricks. How long would it take to train other ball turret crews in this system? Sir, I don't think I didn't ask what you think, Major. I asked how long training would take. Hendricks hesitates. If the system is documented properly, maybe 1 week for basic proficiency. Preston addresses the 4 gunners. You have 48 hours to produce written documentation of your coordination system, sector assignments, rotation protocols, hand signals, everything. Major Hendricks, you'll organize a training program for all ball turret gunners in this group. We'll test the system on the next 3 missions. If effectiveness matches today's results, we implement group-wide. If it fails, we revert to standard doctrine, and these 4 face disciplinary action for unauthorized modifications. He pauses. Gentlemen, I'm gambling my command on your innovation. Don't make me regret it. September 15th through 17th, 1943. The 4 gunners work around the clock, producing documentation. Ritchie sketches sector diagrams. Morrison writes rotation timing procedures. Wasserman documents, hand signal protocols. Washington creates training outlines. By September 18th, they have a complete tactical manual, 17 pages of sector assignments, timing charts, signal vocabulary, and coordination procedures. It's not official Army Air Force doctrine. It's something for sergeants, created in a Nissen hut with pencils and paper. Major Hendricks, skeptical but under orders, begins training. 12 ball turret gunners from the 379th attend the first session. The reaction splits immediately. Some veteran gunners resist. This is backwards. We're trained to engage targets of opportunity, not sit in fixed sectors while fighters attack other zones. That's why we're losing, Morrison replies. Individual targets of opportunity mean individual gunners fighting separate battles. This makes us a team. What if a fighter enters my zone but I'm rotated to a different sector? Then trust your wingman's ball turret to engage it, Ritchie explains. That's the point. Overlapping coverage. Nobody fights alone. The skepticism persists until September 21st, the next mission. Stuttgart industrial targets. 16 ball turret gunners from the 379th employ the coordination system. The results silence skeptics. The German fighters attack in their standard waves: frontal beam, tail, but instead of scattered defensive fire from individual turrets, they encounter coordinated curtains of 50 caliber fire from prepositioned gunners. Attack runs that should catch turrets vulnerable during rotation meet. Turrets already locked into defensive sectors. The 379th Bomb Group achieves 8 confirmed kills, 12 probables, 0 aircraft lost. Fighter attack effectiveness drops by approximately 60% compared to previous missions. September 27th, Emden. 10 confirmed kills, 1 aircraft lost to flak, 0 fighter losses. October 4th, Frankfurt. 11 confirmed kills, 0 losses. The statistical evidence becomes undeniable. Formations employing coordinated ball turret tactics suffer 50 to 65%. Fewer fighter attack losses compared to formations using standard individual engagement doctrine. On October 8th, Brigadier General Robert Travis, commander of the 1st Bombardment Wing, arrives at Kimballton unannounced. He observes training, interviews the 4 gunners, reviews gun camera footage from 6 missions. "This works," Travis says flatly during a meeting with Colonel Preston. "I'm authorizing immediate implementation across the entire 1st Wing. Every ball turret crew will train in this coordination system within 30 days. Captain Morris, still skeptical, objects. "Sir, this represents a fundamental departure from established tactical doctrine. We should submit this through proper channels, conduct controlled testing, develop official procedures before—" "Before what, Captain?" Travis cuts him off. "Before we lose how many more bombers? Before how many more crews die? These 4 sergeants solved a problem that's been killing us for months. I'm not waiting for proper channels." He turns to the 4 gunners. "I'm attaching all of you to wing operations as tactical instructors. You'll train every ball turret gunner in the 1st Wing. Consider yourselves temporarily relieved from combat missions." Ricci speaks up. "Sir, with respect, we'd rather keep flying." Travis studies him. "You've done enough, Sergeant. Let others take the risk now, sir," Morrison adds. "If we stop flying, gunners will think the system only works for us. They need to see it works for everyone. Let us prove it." Travis considers this. "All right, you'll fly and train. But if I lose any of you, I'm losing my best instructors. Don't make me regret this." October through December 1943, the 4 gunners become something unprecedented in Army Air Force operations. They're combat gunners who fly missions while simultaneously serving as tactical instructors, teaching between combat flights, refining procedures based on each mission's lessons. The coordination system spreads rapidly. By November 1st, every ball turret crew in the 1st Bombardment Wing employs the tactics. By December 1st, the system reaches the 2nd and 3rd Wings. By January 1944, groups in the 15th Air Force in Italy begin implementation. The tactical impact proves transformative. Bomber groups employing coordinated ball turret defense experience 40 to 55%. Reduction in fighter attack losses between October 1943 and March 1944. That translates to hundreds of aircraft and thousands of lives saved, the Luftwaffe notices. German fighter pilot reports throughout late 1943 increasingly note American bombers demonstrating coordinated defensive fire previously unseen. Multiple after-action reports describe ball turret effectiveness increasing dramatically, forcing fighters to abandon preferred attack angles. Major Egon Meyer, one of the Luftwaffe's leading bomber-destroyers, writes in November 1943, "American bomber defensive tactics have evolved significantly. Ball turret gunners now demonstrate coordination, suggesting pre-planned sector defense rather than reactive engagement. Attacks from below have become substantially more costly." The German response proves the system's effectiveness. Unable to exploit ball turret gaps anymore, Luftwaffe tactics shift toward head-on attacks, more dangerous for fighters but necessary to avoid improved lower hemisphere defenses. This tactical shift contributes to accelerating German fighter losses throughout 1944, as American fighters gain range to escort bombers deeper into Germany, and as bomber defensive coordination improves, the Luftwaffe faces unsustainable attrition. The 4 gunners continue flying through February 1944. Ricci completes 28 missions, Morrison 26, Wasserman 27, Washington 29. Their combined kill count reaches 19 confirmed, 31 probables, but their true contribution far exceeds personal tallies. On March 4, 1944, the Army Air Force officially incorporates coordinated ball turret sector defense into tactical doctrine. The manual, designated Coordinated Defensive Fire Employment Procedures, Heavy Bombardment, credits the 379th Bomb Group with developing the system, but doesn't mention the 4 sergeants by name. The 4 men don't care about credit. They care that crews are surviving. March 6, 1944, Berlin Mission. The deepest penetration into Germany, yet 1,200 bombers attacking the German capital. Morrison's aircraft takes direct flak hit over the target. The B-17 explodes. No survivors. March 8, 1944. Wasserman's bomber suffers catastrophic battle damage during fighter attacks. The aircraft ditches in the English Channel. Wasserman and 3 other crewmen drown before rescue arrives. The coordination system they helped create saves hundreds of lives, but it doesn't save theirs. Ritchie and Washington complete their 30th missions in April 1944 and rotate back to the United States. They never see each other again after the war. Ritchie returns to Brooklyn, works as a mechanic, raises 4 children. Washington goes back to Alabama, teaches at a segregated high school, becomes a principal. Neither seeks recognition. When military historians interview Ritchie in 1978 for an oral history project, he deflects questions about the ball turret coordination system. 4 of us figured out something that helped people survive, he says simply. Morrison and Wasserman died anyway. That's what I remember, not the tactics, not the kills. I remember that they died doing what they believed would save others, the coordinated ball turret. Sector defense system that 4 sergeants developed in a Nissen hut becomes standard tactical doctrine for all American heavy bombers through the end of the war. The principles extend beyond ball turrets to entire bomber defensive coordination, influencing formation tactics and gunner employment procedures. Post-war analysis by the U.S. Strategic Bombing Survey quantifies the impact. Bomber formations employing coordinated sector defense suffer 42 to 53%. Fewer fighter attack losses compared to formations using individual reactive engagement across thousands of missions from October 1943 through May 1945. That percentage represents approximately 1,200 heavy bombers and 12,000 crewmen who survive missions they statistically should not have survived. The innovation spreads beyond American forces. British Bomber Command studies the coordination system for application to Lancaster and Halifax defensive tactics. Post-war, the Soviet Air Force analyzes captured American tactical manuals that include the ball turret coordination procedures. The 4 gunners never become famous. No medals specifically cite their tactical innovation. The distinguished flying crosses they receive mention combat effectiveness, but not the system they created. Official histories credit the 379th Bomb Group, or 1st Bombardment Wing, with developing coordinated defense, but rarely name individual contributors. Ritchie dies in 1987, age 63, from lung disease related to high-altitude combat exposure. His obituary mentions World War II service in 1 line. It doesn't mention that he helped save thousands of lives. Washington dies in 1995, age 74. His funeral in Alabama draws former students and colleagues. None of them know he revolutionized bomber defense. Morrison and Wasserman have no obituaries. Their names appear on casualty lists, mission records, and a memorial wall at Kimballton Airfield, now preserved as a historical site. In 2003, the 379th Bomb Group Association dedicates a plaque at Kimballton to coordinated defensive innovation that saved countless lives. It lists 4 names: Ritchie, Morrison, Wasserman, Washington. 20 people attend the ceremony, most of them former ball turret gunners who flew with the coordination system. One of them, Gerald Hammond, flew 31 missions using the tactics the 4 men developed. He stands before the plaque and says simply, "I came home because 4 guys refused to accept that we had to keep dying the same way. They didn't have permission. They didn't have approval. They just had an idea and the guts to risk everything for it." The lesson endures beyond tactics and statistics. Sometimes the most important innovations don't come from command staff or engineering departments. They come from people close enough to the problem to understand it, desperate enough to risk breaking rules, and brave enough to bet their lives that they're right. For ball turret gunners in a Nissen hut at Kimballton Airfield saved more lives than most generals, not because they had authority, but because they refused to watch friends die while waiting for someone else to find a solution. The greatest act of courage isn't always following orders. Sometimes it's knowing when survival matters more than regulations, when lives matter more than doctrine, when doing what's right requires ignoring what's authorized. Richie Morrison, Wasserman, and Washington proved that, and thousands of American airmen came home because of it.